Welcome to the Smash Podcast with Adam Smash Smith. I'm your host, Shaheen Azizi. So I hear you've experienced injuries as a martial artist. What have you gone through, and what exactly are you going through right now?
As a martial artist, you get injured. My instructor used to call it being injured and being damaged. And, injured was like bumps and bruises, stuff that you can come back and you can train with. And then being damaged is like, I broke my arm and I can't keep going because I have to have surgery. So throughout my whole, martial arts career, I become accustomed to being injured, like just like working through these injuries, these bumps and bruises, a light sprain, stuff like that. Things that just I didn't let deter my training and stuff. But looking at my body, I never thought that I was damaged. And so, I guess the kind of what I've gone through was this experience where I learned that instead of having an injury, I was actually damaged, which has led me to have 4 surgeries total. 3 of them I had on one hip, and 2 of those surgeries, my first 2 was an experimental biocartilage that they were trying to use to, it was like they mixed a cadaver powder with my own bone marrow, and they surgically went in and they put this paste like in my cartilage that tried to help regrow the cartilage that had been delaminated from all the kicks and, traditional martial arts stuff that I've done like my whole life. And then both those surgeries, they just didn't work. That cartilage stuff didn't work. I had too many bone spurs that just kept growing back pretty fast. And I did stem cell therapy. I did PRP injections. I tried, every bit of everything, yoga and all that kind of stuff. And they just kind of came to the point where, they said at 33 years old, you need a total hip replacement. And for the other side, they said pretty much the same thing. We're not even going to go through all that headache. You need a total hip replacement. So now I'm at 2 full hip replacements. I'm recovering from this. Well, I'm really recovering for both of them because I just got the other one done 3 months ago. And yeah.
What's some of the pain you have experienced while going through the recovery process?
Pain isn't, it's like pains. That's kind of the difference in the damage versus an injury. I'm really accustomed to pain, and so this is probably this is the big reason why I didn't get things addressed earlier, because if 10 years ago I would have gone to the doctor and they would have taken an x-ray of my hip, they would have said, hey, you got these bone spurs, we need to take care of them now before it leads to no cartilage in your hips and stuff. And I could have got it done, but I was so accustomed to pain and just dealing with these light injuries over the years and stuff, bumps and bruises and stuff, that pain really wasn't a thing. So I'm really the last guy to talk to anybody about pain because I don't really quite have an understanding of pain. I just push through if it hurts, if I'm tired and stuff. I think there's not really a quantifiable number that I could even give somebody that they would even understand my scale of pain. When I go to it, it's like, my scale of pain was, I didn't really know that I was in pain. And the doctors were saying, hey, how are you still even walking? Because you should be in incredible pain. So when people say, well, were you in pain? I'm like, they would, yeah, really, I really only noticed I was in pain when I couldn't walk anymore. Every time I took a step, it actually like physically hurt so bad that I didn't want to step anymore. And so at that point, then I was like, okay, now I'm in pain and need to go see the doctor, and realize I was like damaged.
Wow. So just being so tough has kind of led you down a road that you didn't think you were traveling.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was like a custom lifestyle of pushing my body through like that stuff that's tough, or like, I guess, I mean, I don't know, hard for me personally, or anybody really, I guess, whether it's you're tired, or whether it like might I guess hurt.
That old school mentality where to get stronger, you have to kind of experience some pain, some strain, right, to grow.
Yeah, exactly. Like they say, pain is weakness leaving the body kind of thing. Like as a martial as a martial artist, I don't know you. I've done this stuff since I was 5 years old. Like, I eat, sleep, and breathe martial arts. So yeah, all the like martial arts mentalities and like customs and things are like innately who I am. So it was all the stuff I used growing up was like, okay, like I'm not really in pain and all that.
So, what are some of the mental tactics that you've used to kind of push yourself through that pain that are also maybe coming into play now that you're recovering?
Going through the years of like when I was, I fought for a lot of years with, bad hips and limited mobility and stuff like that. But I guess I just continued to work smarter instead of harder. I got better at different aspects of my game and stuff like that. I couldn't necessarily move as dynamically with like my footwork like I used to be able to do when I was more flexible and stuff with my hips when I was younger. So I started like more dirty boxing, trying to get people up against the cage. I wanted to just fight inside the pocket and stuff like that. When before I would be like an outside fighter and I would try to, get in, get out, close the distance, bridge the gap, and use that. I used a pretty strong hips and like a pretty solid, lower body that I could, move, really explosively. That's how a lot of my karate was based on that kind of stuff. So, that took it away a lot of ways, because that would not be comfortable for me. And so, but then I got really comfortable just staying in this pocket, being able to stand and bang and stuff. So stylistically, as I changed, I didn't feel the pain and stuff even more because I was staying within my limited mobility and stuff as well. But
So, the mindset of how you're going to approach the training can also affect the results you're going to get. And maybe you put energy unknowingly into a different style because of the pain, even though you are very tough. What are some of the things that you've used to enhance the activities you're doing while still reducing mobility with your hips?
in order to that's kind of what I was talking about in the last podcast, was really like knowing your injuries and stuff. So, for me, I'm really hypersensitive about my body awareness. Like I really know, my flexibility on any given day, like how far I can move my arms and legs and stuff like that. But really people don't quite understand coordination and just the benefits to coordination enough, mostly, that when you understand like somebody that's extremely coordinated and really highly body awareness sensitive, like they can just feel their muscle groups, like a yoga practitioner or somebody. That's what I've done for my martial arts my whole life, was make sure that the tiniest little muscles in my foot and my hands and stuff were able to help put me in the placements so that I could win these tournaments, where they're judging you on all that kind of stuff. And it makes a difference between a tenth of a point of you getting first place or somebody else beating you and stuff. So because I got this really good sense of coordination, it became really easy for me to change my style, and fight or compete based on whatever given injury I might have, or like limited feeling on a flexibility issue or something. Look, I mean, you can do some grappling and get a zinger in your neck, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, my neck hurts now. Well, for a while I might not be double legging people, so I need to have some kind of a backup plan and stuff like that. So like those kind of things, I got really good at being able to go, well, if I can't do this, then how can I do this? And it really, now my, the ultimate goal is to get back, be healthy, be able to, do everything I used to be able to do, and now be able to be so dynamic with my styling that I can, be inside, outside, up, down, all that kind of stuff.
So it sounds like the physical aspect is incredibly important, and that you obviously are training your body to respond to the types of, action you're putting it in. But how much more important is the cerebral side? It seems like if you don't have the mental game down, it doesn't matter how big and strong you are, you're going to get broken before you can actually get to it.
I think really it comes down to the fact of like, I'm an extremely dedicated martial artist. This is what I do. Like, I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. And the last few years I've been going through like injury and recovery and stuff like that, but I'm ultra dedicated to the recovery of this injury as well. And so, I think most of the things is if you have a skip in that, if you aren't as dedicated as maybe somebody is, and you're trying to go through this stuff, it's going to come out. And it really comes out in the times when you have you're in your darkest days of recovery. You could, even just, I learned from this past surgery, I haven't been a painkiller person. I don't like to take the painkillers because I understand and they have before, and they do to me, period, is they change my mentality and how I'm able to respond to things. And I don't like that. I'd rather be in pain and know I can control myself than to not be in as much pain, but having something else control my mind. So I think just, when you're in those dark days of maybe like a painkiller, brain fog and stuff like that, and you're starting to lose sight of what, like, who you are or what you really want to do, because you just think that maybe in your head, like, well, maybe I do just want to go work at Costco for the rest of my life, and stuff like that. That's not really in my head. It's like, no, this is what I'm gonna do every single day, no matter what. If I'm crawling on the mat with no legs, I'm gonna be doing martial arts still. So it's easier for me to get through a lot of these injuries, I think, with that mentality that I know who I am, but I learned a lot, especially with this last one, how hard it really, really is for people to get through like these injuries. Like, even for myself, I mean, now I'm, 9 days out from my last hip surgery. But man, the first 5 days, I got really too into the painkillers. I mean, I was doing it as much as, even less than what was prescribed. I was supposed to take 2 oxys every 4 hours, and I was taking like 1 every 2 hours for like 4 days, and that, after 4 days, you're like really a different person, and you're like thinking different. And I didn't eat for like a few days, so now I'm just and then you start to have these negative thoughts. I was like, man, there's a lot of people that haven't made it out of this kind of even a funk. And so I'm thankful to be able to do that.
Yeah. So, what are some of the other things that come along with the depression of being hurt and being uncertain of exactly how you're going to recover, how long it's going to take, or how are you going to feel at the end of this recovery?
Well, yeah, right. That's just it. Is like if you are depressed. Like, if you're an athlete and you got injured, you're depressed, because you're not doing what you used to be doing. And the more dedicated of an athlete are, probably the more depressed you are, especially if you're like completely sidelined, where you're not even, able to be active and stuff anymore. I went from competing as much and whenever I wanted to, and being able to win whenever I wanted to like, all of a sudden now I couldn't compete anymore. And not only that, but I couldn't compete anymore. But then my job was to still help other people do what I love, so much, and watch them compete at something I love and help them compete and I couldn't compete myself, and so you're depressed because you can't compete, and then you got to go watch everybody else and help everybody else do something. So yeah, that kind of was the harder thing for me, was like, I still have to do this, but at the same time, it was the best thing for me because I was able to stay in the game and stuff like that, and keep progressing for myself on like the teaching side, and move forward like that way. So I think that's definitely helpful.
So, this kind of cycles back to the whole staying on the mat, being consistent, even if you are injured or you're experiencing mental agony. Get back to the mat, get into the area where the environment is good, and stay around those other people with the same goals. Otherwise, you're going to fall into despair, right?
Yeah, I don't. My support system is solely comes from people that are martial artists. Like, I don't have people that are trying to pull me away and say, you know what, Adam, you should just do tiddlywinks now or something else. Go play soccer or something.
Let's go play a card game.
Yeah, let's go play a card game. Like, every friend and person and whatever I have is, supporting me to get back to doing what they know that I love, and what and a lot of them love themselves and know it's important, is the martial arts. So my support system is complete there. So that's where I tend to even keep myself associated, because I know that that's how I'm going to get back there.
So in the same way that your job is to kind of inspire your pupils to continue on their adventure, their journey, their goal to become a better martial artist. In the same way, if you're ever feeling down or in a situation where you need some support, they're kind of returning the favor, right?
Well, let me tell you what, it's like you go see these. I love to teach so much, it's probably because my instructor helped me so much, when I was a kid, and I looked up to him so much. And so now it's every time when I get to look down and see these little kids' faces, and they're, they have just, if you work with kids, people understand this, like this authenticity and stuff like that, and this coolness that kids have. I enjoy making sure that I'm still on the mat and able to fulfill my obligation of being a role model. And even through injury, it's almost not if, it's just when. It's these kids are going to get injured as they get older, or maybe not even get injured, but just have to overcome something that's like a hardship in their life, and realize, man, I remember my jiu-jitsu teacher, and he like had double hip replacement, was in an electric blue walker, and couldn't even stand on his own, and then got back to competing. So I think if I can still at least do my part, like that definitely helps me feel like I'm still moving.
Well, and it just shows, it's like the greatest example of perseverance that you can give to them, because it's one thing to be like, hey, watch me lock this Kimura down and I'm going to, put this guy in a position so he's going to tap in front of you. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. But to see somebody get injured, come back from that, and continue to focus on their goals while still teaching other people, I mean, that's inspirational.
I remember learning that power, that leadership power, that leading from the front, leading by example, and just, the effectiveness of it and stuff like that. Most of the time I don't even need to say anything, because it's not the words that they're going to remember. It's the stuff that they see and they experience. And yeah, just that, like they're going to remember because they saw me on the mat, maybe struggling to show a drill, but still giving my best effort to do it. Or like, still just getting on the mat, even though it's hard for me to get the uniform on. And these kids are smart. They understand that I'm at my best, but I'm still out there trying my best to be with them and stuff too. So, I think the leading by example part, the role model part is important for me to be able to just stay on track for my own mentality, and like depression and stuff too. Like I still want to get back out there and compete with the best people in the world. Like right now, like, I just had a guy that offered me a fight, like an MMA fight.
Like,
everybody knows.
See you next week.
Yeah. I was like, he said, oh, you want to fight MMA? And I was just like, oh, well, and it was like in a couple of months. And even though I did my last, tournament like 2 months after, I'm like, I got to wait at least like a year, give myself some good recovery before I get back in there. But it was really tempting. It was just tempting to be like, I want to fight again, because that's where I want to do. I want to get back in there and compete right now. And I want to, I want to like get those learning opportunities so I can grow, so I can be one of the best in the world. Like that's still on my mentality. It's still on my drive for what I want to do. So
obviously the doctor has given you some instruction on the things you need to do to recover. What are some of the movements that you have to go through, even though you should be healing? Obviously you need to move around a little bit so you don't lose flexibility.
Yeah, I don't have the best relationship right now with my doctor. It's like I thought I was going to be smart and wait until I had my other surgery done 3 months ago for the other hip replacement. And then 2.5 months after, I did a tournament, a jiu-jitsu tournament. I won gold at black belt gi in Seattle for a tournament that's really big over this way. And anyways, and so I was like, for me, excited to like tell him like, yeah, recovery's going good, for an athlete and stuff. But I knew that he was going to be mad. So I waited until we were going to go for the second hip replacement. So I'm right about to get wheeled into the surgery room. And he just happens to say, how's the other hip doing, by the way? And he was all smiling and stuff. And I told him, oh, it's great. Just to let you know, I won a gold medal in the black belt jiu-jitsu competition just last weekend. And he just went from a nice guy to all of a sudden not happy. He was just, and then he went from like being jolly to like telling me that I need to quit doing what I'm doing, and like, martial arts isn't something I can do anymore. I should give it up, and well, I need to give it up because I can break my hip, and it's just, he doesn't want to see me in the ER, and so, I mean, he was like so mad he didn't even come and check on me after the surgery or call afterwards or nothing. Just like, I don't even want to see him at the 2 week like thing, because I think he's just gonna lecture me.
Wow, it's like your parent is upset with you, and so they just literally can't. I can't even look at you right now, otherwise I'm going to get mad and say something that I shouldn't.
Yeah, I feel like that's where he was ready to say something, but and at the same time, he doesn't understand the level of coordination that I have. Like, this is, I've worked on my body since I was a little kid, like every single day. He has no idea even what I can do, and so for him to say that I wouldn't be able to somehow mitigate my movements or something like that and still continue what I want to do, I really think is just mostly like unrealistic and unprofessional. If I was a smart doctor that's doing orthopedic surgery on an athlete and stuff, and I somewhat understood their caliber of athleticism, I might try to talk with them about, especially if they have a gung-ho, eager attitude to move forward with what they're doing. It would be more like conversations on being able to mitigate their movements and working within what they're what you think they would be capable to do, and not just giving them this hard pressed, don't do that anymore, because at the same time, like, we must not understand like the realistic aspect of a sports depression that I'm still in the midst of. Like, I'm still sad that I can't compete every day, and I still want to go out there and compete every day. And so when you're gonna sit there and try to tell me this, like, no, this isn't the right time. Probably not gonna make me happy and recover better anyway. So, even if he didn't know about that, as a professional, I would probably refer to like a sports psychologist or something and say, this is a pretty serious injury. You might need to go see a sports psychologist or something like that, just to make sure that you're prepared for what you're gonna move forward with. But for me, I'm not dumb, and so I see that some of the like people that have had hip replacement surgeries and double hip replacements are out there and able to do like some sporting things. They can lift weights, they can do run, bicycle, and stuff like that. And so those are some impactful things that, like, I realize, okay, if they can do that, I can mitigate some of my movements so that they stay within a motion of like a light impact, like a running, or if I can squat 300 pounds and that's okay with hip replacements, I can do quite a bit of stuff in jiu-jitsu, because you don't take too much more of a 350-pound load on your hips and stuff. So, some of that stuff, just being that smarter athlete and like understanding is what is going to get me through and get me back to the competition. Is I have to think, now what's the realistic aspect of what they say I can do, and then how does it fit into what I do, because they just don't know.
Well, and this also comes full circle to knowing what you're doing. So you're talking about knowing your injury, knowing your body. You also have to know your sport, know the things you're going to go through and how you might react to that. I mean, even with a leg lock, which is the most terrifying thing you would go through in that situation, they're not going to be pulling on your hip to try and pull it out. They're going to be twisting your knee, and that's 17 times more terrifying in my head than the thought of someone trying to pull. Like, your body will get dragged before your hip pops out. I'm no doctor, but it's just,
that's exactly it. And I was like, I know now what I need to do next. And I read this, or saw this story from a Japanese sumo wrestler, and he's a real famous sumo wrestler, and he ended up getting like I think it was a labrum or a tear in his shoulder or something like that. And instead of going through surgery, because he knew that it was going to take him away too long from the sport, he knew that he just needed to build up all the muscles around the shoulder to support that joint. And so he just worked extra hard at supporting the joint and stuff like that, and was able to go back and compete for years, just with that injury. And I realized that same thing, that is kind of what I'm going through, is I need to support my injury and my joints now with a lot more muscle than I had before. So it's going to be a conscious thought about like how I move forward. And still, in jiu-jitsu, no offense, like breaking of the femoral head isn't like the most common of jujitsu things, and even as funky as a movement we do, like you don't really see too many people dislocating their femur from their hip sockets. Like I've never seen that or even heard of it in a jujitsu competition. It's even with leg locks, and people doing heel hooks and stuff like that and stuff too. So I don't think, for an uneducated person to look at this, to look at me and tell me that I need to quit doing what I'm doing when they don't even know what I am doing, is necessarily the right thought.
Well, not to mention,
I don't want to take that piece of advice. Let me just say that.
Well, I mean, also, aren't most hip replacements in people who are a lot older than you? So, I mean, when they're talking about the recovery time, your muscle heals faster. I mean, everything in your body works better than someone who's 55 or 60 years old, which is generally when somebody would get a hip replacement. So, I mean, how much research does he really have access to that shows all of these high-level athletes getting injured and then going back to the field? I mean, I bet there's very few.
Right. That's it. Or like I was saying is, geez, I guess if I've been an EMT for 12 years, and like that's not a medical like professional that knows a ton, but I know like the body, and between my EMS skills and like also my high level of coordination and understand, obviously knowing my anatomy and things like that over the years, that's why I just sit there and go, man, this is the only thing that this guy knows how to say, probably because that's his only patients are from people that are older, instead of, even just having the mind to step back and say, hey, this patient of mine, probably could still build muscle and probably still build a significant amount of muscle being still a young, healthy person. At 60 years old, you're not building a ton of muscle, and even past the, the 50 year and stuff like that, that's hard to build quite a bit of muscle. But at 31, 33 years old, it's like I can build quite a bit of muscle still to support that. And not only to get me back to being a healthy athlete, but to, have a better quality of life in the first place. It would be like his thought should have been, hey, I would really suggest that you do a lot of yoga and a lot of squats or something like that.
Yeah, like what can I work on? Not just stop doing all of this and go sit in your room and heal.
Yeah. And they have I go to physical therapy and stuff, and really, when I go to physical therapy, the physical therapist just says, I mean, your body really, really well, and you're doing, a lot of good movements and stuff. And obviously I know when my leg's about to pop out of socket because I can feel that and stuff. But, and I'm not pushing too much, but I do push it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do still need to recover. You have to move properly. And as an athlete, sitting still is definitely going to tighten up the muscles and the ligaments around there. So just as he said, you need to recover, you still have to listen to your doctor, but you need to take the steps to recover as an athlete, not just as a person who's hurt themselves, who's going to go back to a possible sedentary life. And maybe, we can focus on nutrition in the next episode when we return on the Smash podcast.